holding aloft a baby that was more ashen than alive, with the same hair as me, as dark as damp earth, plastered to her skull, her skin wrinkled and wet, and completely, chillingly silent. As silent as my mother. Masami told me how she'd placed the baby on Mother's belly and rubbed her back, patting and crooning, encouraging her to cry, and fill her lungs with life-sustaining air. When none of it seemed to work, the midwife lifted my sister up and slapped her across the rump. She cried at last, her eyes opening for the first time. And that's when my mother screamed. We were in the Citadel, so we didn't see the night sky, didn't witness the pulse of darkness that obliterated all light, including the stars. At the moment my sister cried and turned her burning eyes on my mother for the first time. But Sami heard about it later. Sami had been in such a talkative mood, I'd summoned my courage once more to ask the question that had haunted me more than the others. Where was he? No one knows, and there's no use wondering. He's gone, Zuhra. She'd replied bitingly, hard with old anger that wasn't necessarily aimed at me. The gates to her memory slamming shut at my cursed inquisitiveness. And that's all you need to know about him. That was my third and last memory from that night. My mother staring at the baby in Masami's arms, refusing to take her, and asking, "Where is he? Where's Adalric?" That name had burned its way into my memory somehow, the way my sister's eyes had burned fear into my mother's heart. A name that was banished from our home, as it only engendered loathing and bitterness. I tried to be loyal to my mother. I tried to cling to her hate and make it my own. But there were times, on rare afternoons spent wandering the empty Citadel, when my mother was occupied and wouldn't catch me, when I stared up at the ancient statues and the molded hangings and carved ceilings of the Paladin, the beings who had once lived in our world, whose abandoned home we inhabited. And I couldn't help but wonder what had happened to him, why he'd left us at all, but especially that night. Wonder why the hedge that had been shorter than the iron fence surrounding our home suddenly grew taller than 3 men standing atop one another overnight, so that we awoke to a wall of green surrounding the Citadel where we lived, blocking the iron gate, isolating us from everyone but each other. And, of course, wonder how my mother had ever fallen in love with him in the first place and followed him here. For Adalric, the name I was forbidden to remember, but couldn't forget, was a paladin. Like the statues I stood beside and imagined were real. Like the carvings in the ceiling above me that I tipped my head back to stare at with my plain hazel irises, trying to envision a father with eyes like jewels that glowed with power, riding his griffin. I knew he was one of them, even though Mother never admitted it, never acknowledged what Inara's uniqueness could never let any of us forget. Inara, ray of light. My sister who had the power of the Paladin in her veins and her eyes. When it became obvious that my father wasn't coming back, my mother grudgingly named my sister, a hopeful name for a child that seemed to only ever bring shadows to my mother's face, and finally took her to her breast. I was the only one who looked into Inara's face and smiled. Mother said it was because I had been too young to understand, and that I grew up accustomed to her.